Hi and welcome. This is Kevin Leipzig, host of Contractor TV. Contractor TV is focused on providing content to help contractors start, grow, and manage a successful construction business. We're sponsored by the Contractors Resource Center, which specializes in providing legal, financial, and insurance services for contractors. Today, we're excited to have John Papalardo as a guest. John is with the Bond Exchange, and the Bond Exchange is one of the largest, most reputable and successful bond companies in the country in terms of our business at the Contractors Resource Center. We rely a lot on John and his team there at the Bond Exchange. So, John, welcome. Great to have you here this morning.
Always good to be with you. And I'll have to admit, I don't know how I didn't know this until today, but I've been pronouncing your name wrong for years now.
Oh, well, give it a shot. Well, I'm not going to ask how you do it. It's not yours is a little challenging. Mine's a little challenging as well. We'll just go by Kevin and John. Make it a lot easier, right?
That works for me, but you
Yeah.
got a good
Well, there
name.
you go. I appreciate you making time this morning. So we've done a few videos before. We've talked about contractor bonds. We talked about LLC bonds, really, what these bonds are for contractors, how to get them, how to shop for them. Today we want to talk about a performance bond, another bond that's really common with contractors. Performance bonds are just part of the construction industry. So, John, I wanted to kind of talk about that topic a little bit today. Before we jump in, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you kind of been in the industry, and tell us a little bit about the bond exchange.
Yeah, I've been in surety for quite some time now.
And
It's like
surety
been married
meaning
for a while.
we want to
Yeah.
keep it simple. What is a surety, right? Because people say, well, I'm talking about bonds. What's a surety? One and the
Oh,
same?
surety company, it's just the insurance company for these bonds, the surety bonds. But
Yeah,
in the industry itself, it's a very niche industry in insurance. So when I explain to people what I do, I'm like, this is going to take a while. It's actually very simplistic though, but it's not like insurance. So I think we explained in the other video, because every contractor doesn't understand it.
yeah,
Insurance will, pay out, based on the premium you pay, they'll pay out for whatever the damages are that occur. Bonding companies will pay out, and then they will request, or they'll say, hey, you have to pay us back. You're indemnifying bonding company. So that's why it's not really like insurance.
yeah,
So
yeah.
a little
Completely
different.
different. Completely different.
But
Tell,
I've been doing it for a while. So I was gonna say, like a married man, I can't remember the exact years. It's been over 10.
there you go. Long
So
time, long time.
yeah.
So let's just jump in. Let's talk about, a performance bond. What is a performance bond for a contractor?
So there's they do class what they call it like a payment and performance bond. Because it can have two different obligations. You can be required to have payment, performance, or payment and performance. Um, Essentially, what the performance section of it does is just confirm that you can or assure you can perform the contract. That's it. Everything to the letter of the contract, the performance gets done. And then in terms of the payment, that's to ensure that the contractors, vendors, subcontractors all get paid. Because these projects are, I mean, the requirement of this started with the feds. They enacted a Miller Act back in 1935 to say, hey, we want to make sure that the taxpayer money, you know, is used correctly and we can actually complete these projects. So we need to ensure that they get completed, whether the contractor, goes bankrupt or runs off the job. So that's the start of the requirement for the bond. And the payment bond is to make sure, these, subcontractors and vendors get paid because they can't file a lien on a public project. So
Hmm. Hmm.
that's the importance of that. And that's kind of the generality on those payment performance bonds. That's what they are. Um, and then there's a bid bond, which
I'm sorry,
is
what type of bond? A
oh,
what?
there's a bid bond. So
A
there's a
bid
slight
bond. Okay.
slight wrinkle. Yeah, the bid bond. A lot of contractors might have already heard of this. If you're bidding a public project, the owner of that project is going to want to ensure that they can get a payment performance bond once the project is awarded to them. So the bid bond is essentially that assurance to say it's a bonding company saying, hey, if this is done and they get awarded the project, we'll give them that payment performance bond because what we call them is the obligee or the project owner. They don't want to give a contractor a project and then go, hey, let me get this payment performance bond. And then that contractor go to the insurance carriers and get rejected by everybody. So then they have to go rebid the project again or find the next highest bidder. But it's just a little bit of assurance for the project owner.
Okay, you used the term obligee. Can you explain that in layman's terms? Again, I would want to fit this as simple as possible for the contractor that, may have found this video and has no idea what a performance bond is or what an obligee is or bid bond. I just want to make this as simple as possible. So I appreciate
Yeah.
the explanation.
I almost didn't want to say it, Kevin.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because the whole industry's got its own buzzwords, right? And these contractors, they want to go out in the build, they want to get the business, right? So they get this request, hey, you need to have a performance bond. Hopefully this video is going to answer for them. Well, what is this? How do I get it? Where do I get it? How much does it cost? But back to that question, obligee, what is that, and why is that relevant to bonding?
The obligee it's just a project owner, really. Or in commercial surety, the other side of surety, it's just whoever's requiring the bond, essentially. It's like a state
Okay.
outfit, whoever that may be. Because the thing you'll read in surety a lot is there's there's three parties to the surety bond. There's the principal, which is the contractor, the project owner, the obligee, and then the surety. They all come to agreement to make sure that the
Perfect.
contract just gets done.
Perfect. The trinity of bonding. Yes.
The Trinity, exactly.
Yes,
we're very biblical in bonding.
There you go. There you go. Thank God. All righty. So we kind of explained what it is. How does somebody get a bond? If they have a request for a performance bond or a bid bond, what's the best way for a contractor to go out and shop and find one of these with a reputable surety company?
We're in the 21st century, Kevin. Everyone should be applying online for these things. So they can
Yeah.
go to your website, powered by the Bond Exchange, and just apply online.
Sure.
The industry for a long time was using just paper applications because there's some questions beyond just name and business that they'll ask. And it depends on how large of a project it is. The more questions like a surety would ask of the contractor. But typically nowadays, like a surety for projects, kind of up to $1 million, they'll just ask a contractor like, hey, we just need your information so we can run a credit check, and then we'll get you approved based on your credit. And in some instances, they'll ask a couple of other questions like, hey, what was your largest project to date so far? Because if your largest project is like, $100,000, they're going to say, oh, you want to do a job for 800,000? That seems a little outside of your scope so far.
Yeah. And what's the purpose of doing the credit check?
A credit check is just a good indication that sureties have used to see if someone's financially stable. Yeah, or responsible. Yeah, if they have a lot of past due debts, personally, you can make the assumption that it could be, the same on the business side. So it's not perfect. That is not everyone's like that. Some people just don't use credit at all, and they have cash in their, under their bed mattress. Those guys are great. Those are some of the best contractors.
Yeah. Pros and cons on doing that.
Yeah.
So we talked a bit about, what a performance bond is, talked about the bid bond, shopping for it, again, just being able to go online. Our firm, the Contractors Resource Center, is obviously one source. We'll have our contact information up top. I'm always a little cautious sometimes when I just tell somebody, to just go online and shop. Are there any things to really be aware of that a contractor should know if looking for a performance bond or contractor bond? Any kind of red flags? Because again, there's a lot of scams out there online, and a lot of these, especially new contractors, are solicited with insurance and bonds and all kinds of offers from a lot of scams. So anything, John, that someone should would be like a red flag indicator if they Google performance bond contractor, and hopefully that the first page is going to be pretty legit, but to help that contractor maybe filter out if there's a red flag, is there anything that comes to mind?
Good question, Kevin. Very good question. I think one of the bigger indicators in terms, because it typically starts with that bid bond. If someone's going to request you pay for a bid bond, that's a little bit of a red flag.
Like
Typically,
pay up front or something, or give us your
yeah,
credit
well, the bid
card
bonds
and
are really just a free service by the surety companies. I mean, they all almost all of them do it for free. You might get some one-off cases where you'll have a contractor establish a relationship with an agent, and they ask for like 20, 30 bid bonds and never win a project. Maybe at a certain point, an agent will go, okay, we got to take in a cost for this. But
yeah,
yeah, if someone's asking you to pay for a bid bond, right out the gate. There's definitely an agent out there, someone else that'll do it for free. So watch
yeah,
out for that. Um, Aside from that, I think it's no different than any other business.
it's
You
common
probably want to talk
sense.
to a person and see if they can if they can sound credible. Someone that answers their phone typically is
It's a good
spending the time
start.
to
It's a good
do the right
start.
thing. So
Yeah,
um, it's a big thing for us. We always answer our phone here. And if we don't, it's a one-off time where, multiple people called at the same time. But
sure, sure. Okay, anything we didn't cover? Anything kind of, I mean, fairly basic topic here, but is there anything, John, we forgot to ask?
yeah, I mean, when you're applying, there's a lot we can go into detail on it. I'll try to keep it an overview, but
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
important to understand what size of a project you're applying for. If you're applying for a larger project, because what happens a lot is you'll get a guy, he'll see a project for like $1, $2 million, maybe $2, $3 million. He's like, great, I want that. The ticket or the price looks great. I can make a ton of money on this. Let me apply to a surety company. Um, and then the surety company will come back and say, hey, we need 3 years of financials, we need personal financials, bank line of credit. Um, we'll need to see your work in progress, maybe some account receivable, ARs or aging reports. So it starts to stack up to a contract. I'm like, oh, that's a lot. So just understand what it might take, and the biggest part of this is really having a good financial basis. So when you start going for those larger projects, sureties will want to make sure that the financials that they're receiving, like business financials, are
right,
legitimate. And so to
right.
do that, they want to see like CPA reviewed or audited financials,
Okay.
um,
So you
just
brought
to
up a
ensure
good
that.
point, and excuse me, just before I forget, I want to make sure I ask. When you say larger projects for the, residential remodeling contractor out there that's putting the project together and getting asked this, what does that larger mean? Is that, like $250,000 and up project, 100,000 and up project? At what point, I think if a contractor's watching this or listening to it on our podcast, um, they're going to want to know, well, at what point am I going to need to have financials and bank statements? Is there a threshold of the project size where I'm really going to have to, provide a ton of verification?
Oh yeah, certainly. Right now in the industry, it's generally over 1 million. They're going to want to see financials. There's some cases where they
Okay,
might not need to see too much, because it just depends on the surety. We have access to a lot of markets, which is good because everyone has their own, as they say, in their insurance, their own appetite.
sure.
But generally over 1 million, they're going to want to see some financials, and then it could be like 1.5 or 2 million. They might want to see some CPA involvement in the
Okay.
financial.
Okay, I know for most of the contractors we work with, at least the requests historically have all been under that $1 million point. So give us kind of a refresher on if the project's under $1 million for a contractor performance bond, what are going to be the requirements from the bond company? What are they going to want to see?
Yeah, so they do underwriting on two different things. They'll look at the contractor and they'll look at the project. So under 1 million in terms of the contractor, it's just some basic questions, like two or three,
Such
um,
as,
such as what's your largest project that you've completed so far? Actually, they're generally about it. I mean, they might have a few more, but they just have basic questions on the
they want to see a
on
track record.
yeah, yeah, and they want to see these basic things on the business itself, like address, name, things like that. Nothing much.
Social
Um,
security number, credit check.
yeah, definitely run a credit check. And then beyond that, then they look at the project. They really want to see if it's a bid bond. They want to see, the bid package or the request for a proposal. And most sureties can pull that up on their own. So they just want to see essentially like, hey, how much are you bidding for this? Um, when is the bid? When's the projected start date for the project? And then if it comes into like they've been awarded the contract, they'll want to see the contract because the surety will look at really things that are adverse to the contractor that are on the contract. So it's really
Okay.
beneficial to have a good surety partner because they'll review it to say, hey, look at the warranty on this. The warranty's a little long,
Yeah.
or these are really high liquidated damages. And liquidated damages, contractors should be familiar, but if they aren't, it's when the project's not completed by a certain date, the project owner can assess damages on a daily basis.
Thanks for
Um,
covering that. Yeah, it's kind of important.
yeah, it's kind of a big
Yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
So, your surety's going to look at all these things that are adverse to them because inherently it's adverse to the surety if it affects the contractor.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things, and on subcontractor agreements, which is sometimes you'll have like a GC or a general contractor require one of their subs to get a payment performance bond. And because these contracts aren't, like a state or a city level or a federal contract, they could be adverse to the contractor. So,
Sure.
we'll look through the contract, page by page and see,
Yeah.
did you
We have
see
to.
this language on the payment terms here? This is
Yeah. Yeah.
this
We see
isn't really
that all
good
the
for me.
time. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Crazy, crazy agreements.
it's good to have a surety in your back pocket because we like to look at those contracts to make sure that they all look
Yeah.
good. So
Yeah.
yeah, they'll look at the contractor under $1 million, which isn't much information for them to really give up. Just a couple questions, and then look at the project details. And
Perfect.
then from there, they'll give them approval. Should be quick turnarounds for those things. A lot of contractors will say, "Hey, I have a project bidding today. Can you get me
Everything's
a
a
bid?"
panic, right? Last minute.
Oh,
Yeah.
nothing excites me more. I'm like, we'll take care of
Yep.
you. Get this done today.
Abs
That's easy. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's
Lead
been a
time
quick
is good, but
turnaround. Yeah.
yeah.
When we work with the bond exchange. So, we've talked about, what the performance bond is, how to get a performance bond. Let's talk just briefly about cost, right? So how is the cost determined? Is it a percentage of the award? What's the pricing model of a performance bond for a contractor?
Yeah. Again, bid bond's free. And then after that, the payment performance bond, your industry standard typically is about 3%. Um,
3% of
the,
the, and again, backing up, the bid
sorry,
bonds
sorry,
are
sorry. Yeah, yeah.
free. The bid bonds are free. In other words, that's just the ticket to the game, right? It's the qualification to bid on the project. So those are
Yes.
those are free if someone needs a contractor bid bond. But then when it graduates and moves to, they actually need a performance bond. Um, the pricing, you said industry average 3% or so of the awarded contract price.
Exactly. Yeah. Of that contract amount, they'll just establish a percentage to that and say it's going to be that percent. So when you look at the, your margins on the project, you got to factor in that cost of the bond, and the bond cost can lower, like especially for bonds that are way up there, like
Yeah,
16, the millions, the tens of millions.
yeah.
The contract, I mean, the surety is not going to charge you 3% for those.
Yeah, but
They
those
will give you
million
percent
dollars
factor.
and under, which is probably 90% of the bonds that we see with residential contractors, they're usually that under that $1 million.
Yeah. And then also rates can lower just depending on relationships with sureties. If you've been with a surety for a long time or you're a strong applicant, you have really good financials, really good history, rates can decrease for that reason.
Yeah,
And then conversely, your rate for the bond could go higher than 3%. It just depends sometimes on contract language. If you do have like a longer warranty period, like typically over a year on the warranty,
mhm,
they'll charge us a small percentage. Or if there's like larger liquidated damages, they'll say, we'll take this, but these are a little bit
yeah,
riskier, so we'll increase it a little bit. But unlike like your contractor license bond, those bonds on the commercial surety side of things, the industry or your surety people will say, these payment performance bonds are contract bonds, and then your license and permit bond for a contractor is a commercial. So
yeah,
that's our nomenclature. But for commercial, you can see some bond prices go up to 5 or 10% of the bond value. So that means $2,500 for your $25,000, bond,
yeah,
your contractor
yeah,
license bond. It doesn't really happen in this payment performance or this contract bond world. It's more of like a pass fail. So if you're qualified, they'll give it to you. It'll be this standard rate, maybe 3% or lower. And then if you're just not qualified, you're not qualified, which is the tough part.
Yeah.
And that's a
Right.
little bit more of a wrinkle here, Kevin. There
Yeah.
is avenues for
Yeah.
someone that's not qualified. You still have to have okay credit, but
Yeah.
the federal government's come in with the SBA program to offer, bonds to people that can't
Yeah.
normally get funded. So
Yeah.
we have
Okay.
that option too.
Final question. And again, it just came to mind. I don't want to get too political here, but it can certainly come up in the construction industry. Do you have to be a citizen, or do you have to have it like at least an ITIN number? What are the requirements, if any, in terms of being a US citizen to get a bond?
That's a tough one, Kevin.
Open up a can of worms there.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Obviously, the most of the majority of the market, or almost all of the market's going to want to see a citizen. I think there's
Yeah.
some discussion to be had, especially like in those just license and permit bonds. There's people discussing like, hey, these ITIN numbers, really good contractors, good history. So there's probably some
Yeah.
credence there. I think for larger contract bonds, you're probably not going to see an approval on that.
Yeah.
If my memory serves correctly, I believe the SBA might be able to help in that regard.
Got it.
But it's
Yeah.
not going to be easy.
Yeah. I think the takeaway here is simple as simple. I'm gonna get tongue tied here. As simple as we wanted to make this, you know, conversation about bonds, it really depends. I think that's part of the takeaway, right? And that's why, you're there as a resource. My number, our number is going to be up top here as a resource. So really the takeaway here is, John and I are here to help any contractor with, a contractor bond, LLC employee bond, performance bonds, bids bonds. We are resources here to help. So again, I think the takeaway is there's a lot of variables in this, correct? I mean,
Yeah.
there's some commonalities, but there's a lot of variables with these bonds.
The name is escaping me right now, but a very, very smart underwriter for these bonds once told me it's not a science, it's an art.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like the insurance business too, right? I mean, it's a whole nother, there's so many different variables, right? How much is insurance? Well, that depends,
it
right?
depends. Yeah. So
Right.
it's definitely it's a huge resource to have a good agent.
Yeah.
I mean, just communicate, get you prepared for what you need to elevate to the next level, and to get these things efficiently.
Yep.
So it's huge. It's really good to have a good relationship with your agent as a contractor.
Yep. Yep. All right, John, appreciate the time. Thank you so much. Again, our information is up top there. Anybody has a question about a performance bond, contractor bond, anything bond related, John and I are here as resources, as well as our team, to help you out with any questions you have. So John,
Yep.
thanks again. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Oh, thank you. Always a pleasure, Kevin.
All right, take care. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.